Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our live stream this morning. I'm Rob Cupello, Chief Strategy Officer and AI Advisor at Check Creative, and I'll be your host for today. Interesting because usually these webinars I do are focused around marketing, so that's the space I live in. But today we're going to go in a whole different direction. So our topic today is AI on the casino floor. And I find it interesting because I think that AI, like I said, I play in the space of marketing, but it touches so many parts of our lives, as we know. So, it's changing education, manufacturing, health, and a place like a casino, because casinos are more than just slot machines and card tables. So they're really ecosystems of games and restaurants and shows and people, and every decision will make an impact on sort of the casinos or the players' experience in casinos bottom line as well. And the one thing I know is casinos got lots of data. There's tons of data inside casinos, so it's perfect for sort of how artificial intelligence can kind of come into it. So I'm excited to be joined by Stasi Baran today. Stasi, thanks for joining me this morning.
Thanks so much for having me, Rob.
No problem. So Stasi and I met a couple years ago, I think, Stasi, and you're the co-founder and COO of Ncube Data Science. So you're the team behind Real AI. You've been working with tribal commercial casinos literally all over the world. I find your journey fascinating. You have a PhD in electrical and computer engineering, your studies in physics and astrophysics, and then you're now in the casino industry. So you've spoken all over the place, G2E, TribalNet. You just said earlier, you guys are going all over the place to speak as well. So you're really sort of the leaders, in this industry. So I'm curious, though, how did you go from astrophysics to building AI solutions for casinos?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'll talk a bit about it in detail during my presentation, but the gist of it is that, when my family would be horrified if they knew that I was sharing this publicly, but I've been going to Las Vegas since I was about 14 years old. So when I was finishing my postdoc and deciding, do I want to stay in academia or do I want to find something entrepreneurial to do? I actually, started looking into the casino industry because it had always kind of, hospitality and entertainment and casinos have kind of been part of my recreational life.
Right.
And I wanted to figure out how to have more fun at work. So it was something that I looked to. And we found a thesis at a University of Nevada, Las Vegas, which is basically the academic institute of casinos. And that's maybe not the best way to put it, but I mean, I think everyone understands.
Yeah.
But they study casinos, and we found all the work on slot floor optimization that was coming out of there, and it really attracted us to the industry. And we had these AI systems that we had created, and we really wanted to, figure out how to utilize the massive amounts of data that casinos are collecting to create value and start a business.
Interesting. So I'm curious, one of the things that I get asked all the time, the question is like, is my data secure when I put it into these models and so forth? And you're living in, obviously, you're working with casinos, which is a data-rich environment, but obviously a lot of privacy issues, I would say, to go over. So how do you address that? And if it's in your presentation, maybe we'll leave it. If not, how do you address the fact that you need to balance privacy with sort of using the data or the data that you're collecting?
No, I'm glad that you brought it up because actually I don't talk that much about data privacy itself in the presentation. And I think that's, largely because it's so different depending on the type of business that you're working with, right? And what jurisdiction you're working with. I mean, there are tribal casinos that, they just want the results. Maybe they're not as focused on, where they're sharing their data because, they're focused on making money for the tribe. Other tribes are extremely protective of their data. Data sovereignty is a big issue for a lot of tribal casinos and a lot of tribes in general. But I mean, because everybody is self-governed, it really depends on the particular direction of that particular tribe. In terms of uploading data to ChatGPT or other such AIs that are just widely available out there, we always caution against it, of course. Even there's a lot of fine print to read in those agreements, and I think the majority of people are actually reading what's going on there. But also, we are proponents of running things locally. There's a lot of AI software that's available out there, even in the LLM space. Sure, they're not as sophisticated as ChatGPT necessarily, or large models that have a huge amount of data, but you can run AIs like that locally and get value out of them while keeping your data private.
Interesting. And now you mentioned sort of, because I assume the regulations are so different between Canada, US, EU, like wherever your kind of the casinos are as well. So you have to navigate that on top of the casino itself might have its own policies around, like you said, data use as well. So I think a lot of your work is outside of Canada. Is that fair to say? Like a lot of the work that you do, or the majority, is it because of that? Is it just so regulated in Canada, it's hard for you to kind of work within that space?
It's not the data itself
Okay.
necessarily. We have worked in casinos in Canada before, and the experience has been very positive.
Okay.
I would say just because of the way the casino industry works in Canada as compared to tribal casinos and commercial casinos in the
Right.
US and abroad, makes it a bit more of a difficult space to navigate. I mean, admittedly, sales wise, because it is largely run by the provincial government, depending on which jurisdiction you're in, and it's a completely different process in terms of speaking to buyers. So it's just sometimes it can just be easier to make headway in different jurisdictions for that reason.
Fair enough. And I'm curious, you're obviously a proponent of AI. What do you do? What's your day-to-day use? What's your favorite tool? What are you using from a personal perspective? What are you playing around with?
That's funny. When I started working in more of a business role rather than a technical role,
Right.
a lot of my coding and
Mm.
a lot of my coding and actually like sitting down with the tech kind of transferred into more of translation of the science for
Mhm.
business.
Yeah.
Just kind of explaining to people that don't necessarily come from a background like me exactly what's happening under the hood. In terms of my day-to-day use, it's pretty basic, to be honest with you. Like I do use LLMs to like check my work and to do research and things like that. But I'm still, I use these tools, like I apply them elsewhere. But in terms of my day-to-day, it's pretty basic, to be
Yeah,
honest.
yeah. It's kind of
Yeah.
funny. I find the same thing when I think about it. I mean, I live in this space, but I'm like, I don't know, I'm taking a picture of my fridge and asking it what I should make for dinner. So I'm not doing anything rocket science with the tools right now. So, but it's kind of fun to do that anyway. So I'm curious, Stacey, I'm gonna exit stage left or right. Which one is it? Left, I think, and pass this over to you to do your presentation. I'm so fascinated to hear from you and what you're going to talk about today, and then I'll jump on at the end again, and we'll chat a little bit about what you talked about. So I'm going to pass it over to you. You can share your screen and jump into your presentation.
Sounds great.
Thanks,
It's
Stacey.
funny while I'm changing this over
Yeah,
to my screen, I'll mention that you had sent that graphic out to post on LinkedIn and stuff like
yeah,
that,
yeah,
and I tried to use ChatGPT to just kind of like adjust it a little bit so that I could post something that looks slightly different,
yeah.
and it just completely like turned me into a different person. So
It's
I'll
actually funny, Stacey, you say that. I actually teach in a six week sprint right now, and I used that graphic because it had the wrong time. So I put it into Google Gemini and asked it to change the time. And I showed it
yeah.
as a case study that it took me like it changed this, and then it changed something else, and it changed something else, and finally it did, and the resolution was terrible. So I actually used it as a case study, and it was so funny to be like where I started and where I ended up when I could have just asked the team to do it, and it probably would have taken them like,
I
30
know.
seconds to do it. But anyways, yeah,
Isn't that true?
cool.
That's
All right, so I'll let you share your screen and I'll sign off then. See you in a bit.
great. Thanks. Hopefully everyone can see my screen now. Um, so thanks again for having me, Rob. My name is Stasi Baran. I'm from Ncube Data Science. So today I'm going to be speaking about AI on the casino floor. So making sense of large scale, detailed player data. So my company Ncube, we have a bit of a unique artificial intelligence that we utilize. So we do something called AI-driven evolutionary optimization. And what makes it different is it uses kind of divide and conquer strategies when it's looking to solve big optimization problems. You can imagine the casino floor. It's a huge ecosystem. Anytime you change something, it ripples through the entire casino floor. There's a lot of interconnected parts that need to be understood in order to be able to generate uplift for the casino. So this type of AI is really geared towards solving those types of problems. We build all of our AI systems in-house. So, even though I mentioned as I'm using ChatGPT and other LLMs, just in my day-to-day work, all of the AIs that we deploy have been built in-house. Actually, most of them that we use are about 20 years worth of research and development, beginning in academia and then, eventually coming into industry. As I mentioned, it's very different than what people think of when they think of AI, but we've used the similar technology in astrophysics, in cancer radiation treatment planning, in medical imaging. We actually use it in finance. We've optimized algorithmic trading strategies for the Montreal Exchange, and more. And now, our first actual like commercialization endeavor was in 2016, 2017, when we looked to apply this technology to the casino industry. And now we have multiple applications in the casino industry that I'll be speaking about, but also I'll be speaking generally about AI use in the casino industry as well. And another thing that is unique about us is that our results and recommendations are human understandable. So a lot of AI systems out there that are mathematically based, when they make a recommendation, it's, if you've done it right, it's typically a good one, but it can't give you a reason as to why it did that. It's learning from data, but it can't say why it made that decision. Whereas our results, you can do a deep dive into the math because they're model based, and you can figure out why the AI made the decisions that it did. So this is me and my co-founder, Dr. Jason Figa. We are, for lack of a better word, nerds. Jason is a CEO and founder. He's our chief inventor as well. So he's been creating these AI systems and is largely responsible for all the real AI modules that we deploy. He's actually still a professor of astrophysics at the University of Manitoba, and he specializes in explainable AI, AI optimization, segmentation, and forecasting. And as Rob and I were talking about, I am a former academic myself, so I have a PhD in electrical and computer engineering. I was actually working on breast cancer imaging in my prior career, and I was really looking to, what's the next step? Am I going to continue in academia, look for a professorship somewhere, or am I going to take my skills and knowledge base in terms of, image creation, image processing, medical imaging in general, and also all of the different search techniques that I applied in that role. And can I take that to industry along with the AI systems that Jason had created? So as we were talking about, that's what led us to find that thesis out of the University of Las Vegas. And here's actually an image that I can share of my youth. So this is my aunt and my mom and I when I was probably about 14 years old, and I think this was my first trip to Las Vegas. So it's that hospitality, entertainment, casino industry has been part of my recreational life for quite a while. So we were looking for ways to have fun at work. We found a thesis out of the University of Nevada, Las Vegas. And we realized that our technology would be extremely suited for the casino industry in general, and particularly for slot floor optimization. And that's kind of where our story started. So in terms of actually getting into the industry itself, so we were a couple of academics, we wanted to do something entrepreneurial, but weren't exactly sure, how to approach it, especially in an industry like the casino industry, which is quite, shut off isn't necessarily like the correct word, but I mean, it takes time to establish yourself in the industry. Like it's a bit hesitant of newcomers, people that don't necessarily understand what's happening within the casino itself and are just bringing technology to that world. But one evening after university, we were having a couple beers at the pub, and we had developed this real AI. We were starting to get interested and going to conferences, like we were on mailing lists. And one of our mailing lists produced, hey, there's this pitch competition happening in San Diego. It was for iGaming, which is admittedly not exactly what we do. So we're more on the land-based side. We're dealing with physical casinos, not mobile casinos. But there was a pitch competition happening, and we had just developed this new technology. It was due in an hour, our application, and we figured, here we are at the university pub. Let's put in an application. So we put an application in, and much to our surprise, we were accepted as one of 5 finalists. We went to San Diego, and we won the competition. So this was in 2017. This was long before anybody was talking about AI and land-based gaming. It was before most people were talking about AI at all. Nobody wanted to talk about it. And, obviously now everybody wants to talk about it. But this is really where our journey in gaming began because, up until then, we didn't really know a lot of casino operators. And we were, using data that was available publicly because of the regulatory space. But I mean, as you can imagine, that data is very private. So anything that's out there is aggregated, anonymized. It's not ideal for like the fine-grained data that we use now. But this competition allowed us to meet operators They shared their data with us, and it really allowed us to refine our product and services to be able to generate uplift in the casino. And I really enjoy the industry itself. Here's me with some celebrities. The opportunity to meet Siegfried. He showed us around his secret garden when they were both around, and I also had the honor of meeting Pac-Man at one of our Global Gaming Expo shows. So 2017 is when we, really first started getting established in this industry, and we often like to say that we were doing AI before it was cool. Um, as I said, when we entered the industry, nobody wanted to talk about AI, and now it's all anybody wants to talk about. So this is actually a snapshot that I took last year, actually about a year ago now. I was giving a webinar for CDC gaming seminars, and I wanted to share it because, the search for casino AI, it is a bit noisy. So people have been, mildly aware of it, since about 2019 is as far as data have go back here. But you can see kind of with that introduction of ChatGPT, and when people, kind of mainstream started talking about AI, it really started taking off at that point. There was really an upward trend in people searching for casino AI. And, funny enough, I wanted to update this chart. And this is the current up-to-date chart of casino AI. We're just going to, this is the last 2 weeks at the end here. So we're going to hope that that's just a little blip. But let's just hope that's just noisy data. So one thing I also would like to share is this is from a presentation I gave in November 2021, and it was on just generally AI and gaming, and I was talking about what isn't AI. So AI isn't a classic kind of statistical analysis. AI isn't visualization on its own. AI isn't when you rely on a person to interpret the results of software, like visualize data in order to make decisions. So it's not traditional analytics. And the last thing I said here is AI is not going to take over the world. It isn't scary. And if anything, we're in the age of artificial stupidity. And I think it takes a big person to admit when they're wrong. So, at this point, I never really I never thought that we would be where we are now, especially such a short time after that presentation in November 2021. So, I think when we look back 10 years from now, we're going to see that a lot of this technology is at its infancy. We still, as Rob and I were talking about, you get a lot of weird stuff in image generation AI and things like that. We should enjoy it while it lasts, because those errors and those weird things happening are probably not going to be around for long as this technology gets more and more refined. So I think there's a lot of rapid growth, and the technology is evolving extremely quickly. And if you're like me, you get a little bit frustrated with how much companies take advantage of the AI in general. If we look at a piece of software that we might have used in 2020 versus 2025, sometimes it's just doing the exact same thing, but you see AI all over that. So in this kind of cheeky cartoon here, sort has become AI sort, but it's still doing the exact new thing. Or sorry, the exact same thing. And whoa, check out this new AI feature. Well, it's what we've been doing all along, but people are just upping the price and taking advantage of AI for marketing buzz. So there's a lot of good features available out there, but there's also a lot of junk. So the actual impact of AI features may vary when looking at AI software and tools. Okay, so let me get back to casinos and AI here. So as we were discussing earlier, casinos collect massive amounts of high quality data, and it really makes it a unique kind of laboratory of human behavior just because of all of the information that's being tracked. In particular, what we use is event level data or session level slot data. And what that means is basically when you sit down at a slot machine, everything that you do on there is being recorded. So when you put a card in, it knows and it records that. When you play a game, when you push a button, it knows when you put a bill in, it knows when you extract money. Anything that happens there is recorded as an event. When a tech comes and opens the door to do repairs, that's recorded as well. So everything is being recorded on the slot machine. Now, more recently, we've started using session level data rather than those events. As you can imagine, event level data just results in massive data sets. Sessions, they're not nothing to sneeze at. They're also extremely detailed and large data sets. But that information is more like When did a person sit down? So that's when the session begins. When did they insert a player card? That might be when the session begins. Then it's recording things about the gameplay, like how many games were played, how much money was put in, like the coin in of the machine, how much came out, the coin out, what was the revenue on the machine, and when did that player get up and leave. So that's what a session level slot data session looks like. Financial reporting is also extremely detailed. And again, that's because of the regulatory space. Because it's highly regulated, the requirements for reporting are extremely strict. And there's a lot of detail there about financially what's happening on the floor and elsewhere. Loyalty card data is also a big one. If you've been to a casino, you know there are player cards that you can insert in the machine, and you get points for the amount that you play. You can also use that card in gift shops. You can use them for dining and continue to accumulate points, which you're ultimately, given rewards for at the casino. Many casinos have, anywhere from like 40 to 80% carded play, depending on the jurisdiction and the loyalty environment of the players. Some jurisdictions around the world require you to have a player card to play, which is, that's a really, in terms of the data science and the AI applications available there, those are fantastic opportunities simply because absolutely everything is tracked and connected to a player. But the loyalty card data is extremely valuable. Surveillance data is also a big one, and that goes way back. So since their inception, and anything is recorded, like the amount of cameras that are in casinos and now Bluetooth beacons and the amount of surveillance data that's happening there is also extremely detailed, and that's one of the oldest areas of the casino where AI and data science have been deployed. So as everyone here probably knows, AI is data hungry. So the casino is really the perfect environment to deploy AI, increase efficiency, increase revenue. There's so much that can be done just with these massive data sets. So, as I'm sure is no secret, casinos make their money with math. So, I'm a big proponent of using the right tools for the right task. And although large language models, image generation, that's a huge part of what I think people's everyday tasks look like. It's not necessarily the best tool to use on the casino as a whole. So there's many business applications of AI in casinos, but the ones that are going to ultimately increase revenue the most are going to be ones that are based on data modeling. They're going to be based on advanced optimization and AIs that really use numerical methods and math models. Not that, under the hood, of course, every AI is fundamentally math, but ones that are actually working with the math of the casino are going to be able to give you the best revenue uplift. And ultimately it's about optimizing the business. And traditionally a lot of these things are done, they might be done in Excel. They might be done by somebody that just has a ton of casino experience. They might be done by human teams. But ultimately there are a lot of casino decisions that reduce to optimization that are perfect opportunities for using AI. So for example, how do I maximize my slot revenue? How do I maximize my table revenue? What's the best optimal mix of slots and table games? What's the best mix of games on my floor? How do I maximize customer engagement? So these are all optimization questions. What's the most reliable financial forecast for each of my departments? This is all optimization and ultimately going to increase efficiency or revenue for a business, in this case, a casino. And I think that, everyone thinks that they really know what optimization is. And I think it's used a bit loosely in business. And I mean, this is coming from a very nerdy technical background, admittedly. But what somebody in a casino might say is optimization is not necessarily what I would say is optimization. Like somebody will, look at data and decide what an optimal plan is. They might, play with some numbers in an Excel sheet to look at, different KPIs, look at revenue projections, things like that. They might visualize performance metrics to make a decision. And, they can look at maps to be able to, figure out the optimal business location. These are all very important tasks. And, they're traditionally done in a pretty manual way, and I think it's changing now with the availability of technology. Admittedly, there's a lot of technology out there that disguises itself as sophisticated, that is basically the same as doing it in the manual way, if not potentially worse. But there's opportunity now with AI to be able to see things that human operators simply can't see. And using powerful AI methods, you can apply them to all these different problems and all these traditional roles to be able to do them with greater precision and get better results. This is kind of how I think of optimization. And yes, this is an AI generated image. So this machine is, your opportunity for optimization. There are basically a bunch of knobs on the machine that people are turning to try to get an optimal model. And this guy up here that's circled, he's monitoring the outputs. So how do we actually optimize this model and get our best result? In this case, if it's a casino floor, all these knobs represent different slot machines. And this person is saying, okay, is this the optimal casino floor? And you can certainly, with all these people, optimize a casino floor, optimize a business process, perform any optimization task and get a good result. But as you can imagine, there are so many dials to turn here that is very difficult to find the best solution. So you can find a good solution, of course, but how do you find the best solution? And putting AI in the loop of this machine is really the way to do it. So AI can then provide, if given feedback, can provide new search parameters. Basically, let the AI know what your parameters were and what the result was. And the AI will give you new information that says, well, actually turn the knobs to this position. I want to see what the feedback is there. And ultimately, in a much faster way than the humans trying all the possibilities, you can ultimately arrive on the best solution. So I'll move on now to the types of AI that are used in gaming. And this is just, a small subset, I'm sure, of all the different options of technologies that are actually being deployed. But there's some that I've seen and, that I'm familiar with. And I'll speak about them generally, and then I'll finish with talking about specifically what we do in casinos. So types of AI used in gaming, there's machine learning, neural networks, there's tree-based algorithms, evolutionary algorithms, natural language processing, I'm sure, and many more. And I'll just go through some examples of how these technologies are used. So neural networks, before LLMs became popular, when somebody thought of AI, I think they would typically think of neural networks. So basically, they can handle massive amounts of data and they can recognize subtle patterns that humans might miss. So they're really adaptable to a wide range of tasks. So they're typically used for predictive analytics, maybe classification, and they're the basis of many AI applications, including LLMs. The weaknesses is that they need large data sets to learn effectively. So that's both a blessing and a curse, because these are not small data algorithms. You need a large amount of data for them to be able to learn. Their decisions, while typically extremely good, are a black box. So you can't really query them on why they made the decision they did. But as long as they're tested properly, against known data and things like that, they can make very, very accurate decisions. But they aren't always right, and they can be tricked into making mistakes. And by that, I mean, they're also not robust to noisy data. So when you put data into a neural network, you have to make sure that it's very clean, representative data of the problem that you're trying to solve, because they are sensitive to those outliers. And there's so many applications for neural networks in gaming that are being used. They're really good at seeing patterns in data. So forecasting is a very common application for neural networks. So things like looking at market demand, perhaps for new slot machines, new gaming offers. Financial forecasting is a big way in which they're applied. Casino occupancy. So, for example, staffing can be an issue in terms of, can we forecast how many people are going to be coming to the casino so we can appropriately place enough staff, not only in general, but how many people are going to be taking advantage of food and beverage, how many people are going to be playing tables, how many on slots, and then being able to staff those areas appropriately by forecasting casino occupancy. And you can forecast revenue with this as well, whether it's weekly, monthly, daily slot revenue. As long as you have enough historical data, you can forecast revenue. Now, neural networks are also used for security in casinos as well. And sorry, my apologies. Facial recognition is a big part of this. So convolutional neural networks are specialized for images. Now, there are things like early layers that spot things like the outline of people. The middle layers, they recognize parts like eyes, maybe the nose, and then deeper layers that understand the entire face. So training on this, typically the network is taught using many unique facial pictures, and it learns to identify unique facial features based on that data. And then it extracts features by looking at, basically what are all of these different layers, and then it extracts those features and turns them into numbers. And those numbers represent a face uniquely. There's also money laundering detection. Now, if you follow some of the stories that are out there right now, neural networks are extremely effective at detecting patterns for money laundering. So money laundering, extremely controversial right now. There's a lot of stories in the news about at what level this should be prevented. So there's certainly the responsibility of the regulator, but there's a lot of responsibility on the casino itself to be able to detect these behavioral patterns. So neural networks can analyze the transactions and wagering patterns to identify suspicious activities, and that could include consistently betting on both sides of a low volatility game, betting just under the reportable limit, things like that. So this suspicious activity can be flagged, and then further investigation can be put into those accounts to prevent money laundering. Now, there are a ton of applications for marketing and customer analysis. Customer segmentation is very big with AI. So deep learning can analyze customer data and look at things like their behavior, their interactions, their purchasing history, and it can segment customers into much more refined groups. And this is, really effective for tailoring marketing strategies. There's a lot of companies out there that do AI segmentation for marketing and for specific offers for those segments. And that can lead to better engagement and conversion rates in casino, but it's also important for things like free play. Now, if you're a gambler, you know that if you have a player loyalty card, sometimes you'll get a marketing offer where, here's some free play. Come on down to the casino, and here's $50 that you can use to play. This is a really important thing to understand well, simply because it used to be this situation where free play was a bit of an ad hoc thing that would be offered. So, this person hasn't been to the casino, give them $100. But it's really important to tailor the amount of free play that's offered to the type of player that's going to come to the casino. If you give somebody that comes in to the casino and spends $100, $200 in free play, well, the casino is losing money on that player. And similarly, if you have a VIP, if you send them $50, they might be offended. Also, on top of this, people arbitrage free play, and this can be extremely detrimental to the bottom line for that marketing offer. So it's really important to use things like AI to be able to tailor those offers specifically, not only to prevent a downside for the casino, but also to lead to better engagement and just make the players happier. And there's a lot of personalized recommendations that can come out of that, as I mentioned. So specifically tailoring those offers. If it's not free play, it might be a gift. It might be, an offer for the restaurant. It's really about increasing those sales and bringing people to the casino using those personalized experiences. And this is all tied into that forecasting and predictive analytics as well. So can you predict what the customer spend will be? Is your prediction off? So if you have a bunch of player data and your AI shows that the propensity of a player is to come back and continue spending, $1,000 a week, and all of a sudden that player disappears and they're not doing what they've been predicted to do, well, you can use that AI then to say, well, we need to follow up with that player. You can send that to your casino host and be like, listen, AI says that this customer should have been back twice this month and spent this much, but they haven't done that. Phone them and figure out what's going on. So there's a lot of opportunity there for personalized engagement. Even though we are working with AI, there's still that very personal aspect to it. So one type of algorithm that we really like to use is tree-based algorithms. So a decision tree is like a flow chart, essentially. It's an algorithm that's like a flow chart that really helps analyze customers, you can analyze slot machines in the casino. It's an AI that kind of queries your data in order to segment it and make predictions. It's very easy to interpret the results, which I think is great. And you'll see, I'll just go through an example and you'll see how easy it is to interpret those results. But basically, it's essentially asking a series of questions of your data. So, it might ask, is this your guest first visit? Do they like to go to a particular restaurant on site? And it's really good for segmentation and classification of players. And we use it on slot machines as well. So, for example, what a tree-based algorithm might do is it might look at a player data set and be like, okay, is the guest under 40? And that automatically splits the guests into two groups, under 40 and 40 and over. For the guests under 40, the next question might be, did they spend 2 hours at the poker table when they were in last? And then that splits that segment further. For those that are 40 or older, do they usually attend live shows? And then that splits that particular branch. The tree, it basically keeps asking these questions and breaks down the groups further and further. And, it might ask things about the loyalty card visits. It's really up to the user how, which data fields are of interest. Usually what we do is we just throw all of our data at the tree and, let it decide for itself what's important and what isn't. And that makes it an extremely powerful tool. In the end, these trees can be used to make a decision. So if a guest is under 40 and they played a lot of poker, they might not be interested in slot machines. If the guest is over 40 and usually attends live shows and spends a lot of time at the casino, you might want to send them an offer about a new slot machine that you're going to be putting on the floor next week. So as a result, you have these groups of players that have, maybe a propensity to play slots, tables, maybe they're more interested in entertainment, but all these details about your different player groups, and it makes it ideal for marketing campaigns and promotions. We use the same technology on slot machines. So we might include things like, does this slot machine have bonus rounds? How many pay lines does it have? What's the manufacturer? What's the hold percentage? And ultimately what we get is a detailed mapping of all the different features of the slot machines that are on the floor. And it helps us understand, when paired with player data, what attributes of that slot machine are actually driving the success or failure of that slot machine with that player base. So there's a lot of really good information that's baked in there. Trees are really great because they're highly accurate as well. Their accuracy, I mean, we've done some tests where it's like well above 90%. And one thing that I think is worth mentioning, I really like these tools, but as the complexity increases, you require more and more computational resources. So they can be computationally expensive, but I think they're very worth it. Okay, so I'm going to wrap up by talking about how we use AI in casinos specifically. So we just did kind of a few general examples, but we use an AI system called Real AI, and we touched on this a couple times, so I'm just going to go through it quickly, but it's basically revolving around the concept that the casino is an ecosystem. Players, machines, tables, all these amenities. Anytime you change something, it ripples through the casino and has an impact on everything else. So when you're dealing with these complex interactions, it's extremely important that you have a model that captures all of that. So it's an extremely nonlinear environment. So you really need a math model and artificial intelligence to be able to tease all these relationships out and ultimately arrive at a greater revenue for the casino. So some of our Real AI modules, these are just the focuses of those modules. So we look at table games optimization as well. So we can optimize minimum table buy-ins, the game mix, and table counts. Slot floor optimization is the biggest one for us. We provide guidance to operators on machine purchases, retirements, placements, optimal slot count, lease versus own balance. So, a lot of leased content is some of the better content and more successful content that's out there, but it comes with a fee. So we look at the financial balance between leased and owned content as well. Segmentation for learning the preferences of player segments, determining the likelihood that they're going to play a particular game. It also determines which attributes of games appeal to players. Is it the bonuses? Is it the particular manufacturer, the theme? That's all taken into account. Now, there's also a predictive analytics component. We look at forecasting, we predict revenue, occupancy, game performance. We can enable casinos to strategically allocate their resources. Hold optimization is one that we've been talking about a lot lately. So if you're not in the industry, you might not necessarily know what hold is, but hold is essentially, the amount of money that the casino keeps when you play a slot machine. And it is, I think most casual players would think that it's low compared to what you would expect. So, anywhere from 3 to 8% is typically what's going on there. So Real AI determines as well which games. On which games you can increase hold most successfully. It's a bit of a controversial topic in our industry in terms of whether players can detect changes in hold. But we use data to be able to analyze the hold environment and determine ultimately which games you can increase hold on without players noticing and which ones should be lowered to avoid brand damage. And finally, 360-degree player models. As I'm sure in many industries, data silos are a big problem. And we've been really trying to combine data sets from across the casino, including online gaming, social gaming, slots, tables, bingo, sportsbook, and hotel. We really want to understand the customer. And it's that player card that really helps with that. Unfortunately, not every area of the casino necessarily collects the player card data. And anytime that's available, though, it's really useful for understanding the player as a whole. So we've been looking at integrating all of the player data across the casino to understand how they behave. So some real AI key features are that we learn from the player preferences of a casino's own historical data. It's kind of a philosophy of ours that we really only use data from a casino when making recommendations for that casino. We don't take any external data sources, nor do we use information from other casinos to inform what's happening in another casino. It's really about understanding what's happening at that particular property. We examine about 1 million different possible casino configurations before we land on the most profitable one. I know that sounds impressive because 1 million is a big number, but it's actually impressive because 1 million is a small number. You can imagine, say you have a 2,000 machine casino, how many different possibilities there are in terms of what a slot floor configuration could look like. Actually being able to intelligently narrow it down to 1 million possibilities and then eventually find the best one is a very difficult task, and that's what our particular AI is suited to do. We optimize minimum table bets. We determine, which games to target for hold increases, as I mentioned. We optimize the count of both slot machines and tables. It's been a problem, and I'll just touch on it in a second, that a lot of casinos have too many machines on the floor, and you can actually increase their profitability by taking away some of those machines. And one last thing that I think is very important is it very easily accommodates operator constraints, which isn't easy to do in data science and in AI in general. So if there's a machine that we can't touch because a VIP player plays it, we can just integrate that into the model, and then it just becomes part of the model itself. So ultimately, it boils down to 3 different AI systems. So the first AI, it profiles players into behavioral groups that have similar gaming interests. The second one segments those groups, that into similar characteristics and performance. So it basically looks at slot machines and how players play them and determines, what is it about this slot machine that the player is attracted to. And then the third AI links those two things. So, similar to Netflix, where it knows which movies I'm going to like, the algorithm here is determining which slot machines players will like, but it's also figuring out, kind of that supply and demand situation. Do we have enough of this particular machine? Do we have too many of this machine? And would players migrate to something more profitable if we simply remove these games from the floor? So there's a complex determination happening under the hood, and ultimately you end up with a floor that's best suited for the players that you have. So there's a lot of AI systems out there that I use the term AI loosely, that use ad hoc rules to do this, and that people have been doing that for a long time, and it can be effective. But in terms of what's available to us with AI, I just don't really see that it's necessary. there should be no ad hoc rules or tuning required if you're using the right AI to do this. Machines can be added, removed, and moved using an AI system, and that can be tested. The number of machines can be held static. We can allow for expansions and reductions as the operator wants to do. This AI obeys all operator constraints. Don't touch that machine. We're going to get rid of these machines. All of that can be integrated ahead of time. And we can project when and account for capex or lease costs as well. So there's a lot going on under the hood, and you can really solve slot floor optimization with this type of AI optimization system that we use. And I don't know if you can see the video on here, but I'll play it anyway. This is our back end system, and not particularly pretty. But what it's doing here is, as it's running through an optimization, this is very sped up, but as it's running through a slot floor optimization, the AI is figuring out, okay, so which machines do I remove? Which ones do I add, and which ones do I move on the floor? But this curve that you see starting to develop here on the bottom left, what that's doing is it's plotting the uplift and win against the number of changes on the floor. So if an operator wants to go in and say explore what 20 different machine changes would look like, they can simply click that solution, and then they'll get a set of recommendations for changing out 20 machines. If they want to change out 200 machines, they can go in and choose that solution, and it'll give them recommendations for 200 machines. What's interesting about a complex problem like this is that the 20 machines are not necessarily a subset of the 200 machines. There's a lot of complex interactions that are going on that makes that not necessarily happen. It does happen, but it's not necessarily true that these changes are subsets of each other. But as you can see, it gives a lot of flexibility to the operator that wants to optimize their slot floor. Okay, and I'll just finish up with some user stories and how we've applied Real AI to casinos. So as I mentioned earlier, slot floor reductions are a big one. So we're working with an operator that felt that their floor was overcrowded and underutilized. We've actually done this for a few casinos. And players might struggle to find their preferred machine. So we ran it through Real AI, and the analysis confirmed that there were too many games on the floor that was spreading play thin. And we determined that if we strategically remove certain games from the floor, that we could increase the revenue on the floor. And we typically see, when we're solving this problem, that you can increase revenue on the floor by reducing the slot machine count, or to at least keep revenue the same. We haven't encountered a situation yet where you couldn't just strategically remove machines to create revenue. Negotiating with slot machine vendors is a big one as well. So we were working with an operator that pressured a vendor that pressured a casino operator to add more units during a contract renewal. So they felt that they didn't have enough of their slot machines on the floor. The operator was feeling a bit pressured by this and asked us to run it through Real AI. And we were actually able to show that this casino could completely remove the machines that were being supplied by this particular vendor and actually increase their revenue. So you can imagine that this really put a lot of power in the hands of the casino when they went back to their negotiation. And needless to say, they did not have to change the terms of their contract in favor of the slot machine vendor. There are also a lot of hidden player preferences that can be revealed with Real AI. For example, you might have machines on the floor that are extremely popular. Maybe they're performing, average to the floor or above average. But by understanding how the players are playing and the types of games that they like, Real AI might discover that you should take a few of the popular games off your floor, because those popular games might not necessarily be the most profitable ones on your floor. And if you take them away, those players might move elsewhere, and it'll be to a machine where they'll spend more money and ultimately make more money for the casino. I spoke on this quite a bit already, but increasing hold is something that operators are increasingly interested in. Are there opportunities to increase hold where the players will not detect it? Similarly, if a casino has increased hold and they feel like that might have introduced some damage to their brand. They have turned to us to, help them reverse that and figure out where these players are interpreting these hold changes. So this is a very changeable parameter of a slot machine that people are becoming more and more interested in, but it can be extremely dangerous to adjust it. So we've been looking at this from an AI and data science perspective with quite a bit of success. And we've also right-sized an expansion for a casino. So a casino we were working with was looking to double the size of their space. Ultimately, we help them with the exact count of machines that they should put on their floor and the types and mix of machines that they should put on their floor as well. So we use data from their current player database to be able to extrapolate, what machines would be enjoyable to that player base. And ultimately they did put a few unique machines on the floor as well that eventually became part of that data cycle, and we helped them monitor the expansion over time as well. And I'll just wrap up with a couple case studies here. So this is from Elba River Casino. In early days, we were working with them with our slot floor optimization product. They're a small casino. At the time, they had under 200 machines on their floor, but we were able to find them a 5.2% uplift in win on their floor. And that was with our early models. As we continued to improve our product, we got them up to 10%. With those updated models for about a 10% change in the content of their floor. And this one is just a testimonial. We'll skip that one in favor of this last case study that I'll discuss here. But this is one that we're working on with a fairly large casino in Kansas called Prairie Band Casino. So we were working with them as well as a free-to-play sports marketing kind of player engagement platform called Chalkline Sports. So essentially a player can log in, they can play free sports contests, they can win those contests, and it's all done with the Prairie Band Casino branding intended to bring them to casino, improve engagement. So we use their data plus the data from Prairie Band Casino. So that was, slot, bingo, table game data, anything that we could get our hands on that had that player tracking number that we could connect up. So we were looking at breaking down those data silos and modeling the entire player experience across the casino. So after integrating all that data together, we showed that the free-to-play participants spent about 3.5 times more in the casino than the non-players. They generated about 5 times more slot coin in than people that didn't engage in those games. They had higher trip frequency. They played longer sessions. Ultimately, what we were identifying is that these players just love to play games. And it really helped us identify this very valuable marketing segment in the player base. And I think that, this first case study for the 360-degree player models really highlighted the opportunity that's available there when you break down those data silos and start integrating everything. So this is an ongoing piece of work. We're monitoring this over time to see how these players engage with the casino. And in addition to that, there are more data sources that are coming online. So as those data sources are integrated, we can look at those players. We can determine, what their loyalty patterns look like. Are they, potentially starting to drop off? What does their engagement look like? And how do we increase it? So there's so much to do here with these 360-degree player models. And it's really all about that massive amount of data that's available for the AI. And I'll stop there. Thank you very much for your time and for having me. And I'll happily take any questions.
Stacey, that's fascinating. I was like, yeah, that's crazy on the level of involvement you guys get with data. I'm curious, one of the questions that is popping up is around making sure in marketing specifically, you need to make sure you have clean data, right? Like that you can't, if it's not garbage in, garbage out. How do you work with casinos to make sure that the data they're collecting is clean, or is that a role that you play when you're onboarding a new client?
That's tough. So we don't. While we are starting to explore marketing applications, we don't typically do the marketing side.
Okay.
But I can see what you're saying here and why it would be a big problem. And I totally agree, because marketing data is often just manually entered. There's not a lot. I mean, you get like CRM stuff as well,
Right.
but some of it is manual. So I can see that being a challenge. We're lucky in that the slot management system is collecting everything in a very standard way, and it's really clean.
Okay.
So we typically, I mean, admittedly, well, there's data problems that we see as well. Like there's certain quirks, for example, when a gaming day rolls over, or sometimes like the slot management system will do a weird query that we happen to see in our data. So there are data cleaning situations that we have to be aware of. But in general, it's much cleaner than dealing with from data from other departments.
Especially marketing. We're not clean very in data very often. But you were showing the video of the dashboard, I guess I'll call, and I'm curious, like from a casino perspective, do you work with them to actually understand what is happening? Like how do you communicate that information back to make decisions? Does the casino kind of make those decisions on their own? Or do you work with them because you collect the data, you analyze the data, and then you see opportunities to move slot machines, to add new slot machines? So are you communicating with them on a regular basis of what you're seeing and analyzing what's actually happening?
Yeah, how the casino digests that information is kind of customer dependent. So
Mm,
that system that you saw, that's typically what we run on the back end. We don't. There's not a lot of visibility into that
got
for
it.
the customer.
Got it. Okay.
So depending on how the customer likes to work, they might just get a spreadsheet of recommendations. They might get a Power BI dashboard if they're more of a visual person.
Got it.
How we export is kind of up to them. But regardless of how they get that information, we do sit down with them on a monthly basis. We go through the results, or however frequently they want
Sure.
to make changes. And we go through the results and kind of describe to them, what we're seeing, and additionally get their feedback. And maybe they forgot to tell us a constraint, right? And we have to run it again. Like that certainly can happen. So there's a lot of interaction with the casino itself.
Interesting. And as you're presenting, I'm thinking how this application could work in so many other verticals. And I know you guys are focused in the casino gaming side, but do you see a future where you have different verticals that you use? Because I just as you're presenting, I'm like, oh, I see how this could relate to retail, to whatever, manufacturing. Like you can kind of bring what you guys are doing in, but I know you have probably lots of opportunity in front of you when it comes to just the gaming casino industry. But is that your guys' focus? That's the vision of staying very singular focused into this vertical?
I love working in the casino industry, but you're right. There's a lot of opportunity. What's really great about the AI technology that we deploy is that it's completely industry agnostic. So
Mhm.
the AI itself, we write a casino model that goes
Right,
around it. But
right,
that can just as easily be, a fintech model. That can be
sure,
a manufacturing model. So
right,
there is opportunity. We do work in fintech, as I mentioned
right.
earlier in the presentation. And I think that that's going to be, if when we're branching out, that's probably going to be the
Where?
first vertical that we really do a push. Yeah.
And last question I have is where you've seen probably even lots of change over the last couple of years. These models are changing super fast. Like you said, this is today's the worst that these models are going to be. Every day they're getting better and better. Where do you see it specifically in the verticals you work on? Where do you see the changes that you're expecting to see when it comes to the AI and automation tools that you guys are going to be using?
That's a really good question. I don't even know if I have an answer to that, to be honest. I don't there's like mixed sentiment from everybody, right? Even from myself, I get frustrated with all the
Sure,
AI tools that are
sure,
available there because there's an extra burden of being able to vet what's actually valuable
right.
versus what's just taking advantage of it or just not, 10 times the price with 2 times the value or something like that, right? So to be honest, I don't know. The ecosystem is interesting and we'll just have to see how it goes. I mean, you put a slot machine in the middle of the desert, it's going to make money. So it's not
Right,
like
fair enough.
they're not struggling. So we'll
Right.
see how things go.
Interesting. Well, it keeps us on our toes. I see you wake up in the morning and you get a newsletter that says all the changes that happen in the AI world. So it keeps us on our toes, that's for sure. So, Stacey, thank you so much I know you're busy, so thank you for sharing. It was great. Love to see sort of even just seeing the back end, like the video showed. I love seeing sort of how that all comes together, even though it's not public facing. Thank you for giving us a glimpse of that. So fascinating, because casinos are like a data hotbed, right? There's so much information that comes into it. So love that you're able to give us a little bit of insight on what you guys are doing in the space. So thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you so much for having me. It was really fun.
Awesome. And everyone else, thank you for joining us today. You can access to this recording as well afterwards, so if you caught midway or anything as well. So thank you have a great day, and we'll see you on our next live stream. Thanks for joining us today. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Rob.